What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this.
Sure, Sir Isaac Newton unraveled the mysteries of gravity, but could he have unraveled the mysteries of Rubik's Cube?
I was told by an ODNI agent that Dylan testified to ICIG, the police of the intelligence agencies, that there is a UFO program, and it's called Rubik's Cube. That's what he said.
3 weeks ago, Judge Smith retired to her chambers with Exhibit A, Rubik's Cube. She hasn't been seen since.
And he said, well, do you know what a Rubik's Cube is? And I said, oh yeah, my son can do them in 2 minutes. And he says, so what you do to get to Alpha Centauri is you just twist the cube.
Warning, once you get your hands on Rubik's Cube, you may never be able to put it down.
In the words of Rick Rubin, the audience comes last, right?
Did he say that?
Yeah.
What a genius.
Because, you got to think about the task at hand. You got to think about what you're doing, what you're passionate about, all that stuff.
Wow.
After you do that,
right?
if you do that, the audience will love it, hopefully.
Right.
But even if they don't, it has to mean something to you for you to do
Rick
it. So
Rubin's Rubik's Cube, bro.
Yeah.
Rubik's Cube. Over 3 billion combinations, but just one solution from ideal.
There's a theory out there that there's more than one type or one group taking people.
Yeah. Well, this is the Fox News thing. See if you could find that Fox News report, because it's kind of wacky.
UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside, shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least four separate types.
Strangest briefing I ever got in Congress was from a guy in Army uniform. He was with the 7th Special Forces Group, came in with multiple defense contractors, and told me that there were, about 8 or 9 sites in the country where captured aliens were being forcibly bred with humans to create a hybrid race that could then communicate intergalactically. Frankly, my general counsel thought it was a counterintelligence operation. Sometimes when there's very troubling truth out there in the world, what counterintel will do is that they will present absolutely false information. And they will do it in the hopes that someone will spread that false information so that it can be discredited and then bring discredit on the movement more broadly.
And I think the significant point is this. I am pessimistic in the long run about what we would call capital D disclosure. They're never going to release that stuff. Never.
Vetters, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Today's video is more of a UFO news roundup, so we've got a lot of stories to cover, such as Jeremy Corbell bringing up this Rubik's Cube secret UFO program. I've also got Jeremy Corbell on Area 52 talking about this brand new UFO encounter I have not heard of a giant pyramid sort of hovering for 10 hours over a base, all caught on camera. We've got remote viewing and why remote viewers don't use it to make money, right? Lou Elizondo spoke about that in a new interview, as well as Lou Elizondo speaking about the alien hybridization program and other stuff. We're also going to talk about the 4 alien species that Hal Puthoff revealed in a recent interview that is just now kind of going viral and people are talking about it. It was even on Joe Rogan. And then we've got George Knapp making some comments about disclosure and a couple other stories. So let's jump into this.
So during the height of the drone incursions on the East Coast, there is a sensitive, critical infrastructure facility that has to do with energy. And I got word there was lifting out of the water in a bay with cameras near this facility that were so high definition that it's like perfect footage because you need security at this facility. And a pyramid comes up, triangular by angle of observation, pyramid in shape. Okay?
Like a tetrahedron.
It lifts
three-sided pyramid.
Lifts up out of the water, rotates, I think that's 90 degrees, goes over this base and hovers for maybe 10 hours.
Whoa!
Goes back, goes into the water. And there's what's called the Honeywell system, okay, that is used by Department of Energy. And in the Honeywell system sits this file, and it's like burning a hole in the brain of a number of people. Remember, during the height of all this.
All right, so recently Jeremy Corbell went on Chris Ramsey's show, Area 52, and he told this story, right, of a giant pyramid. You just heard it, sort of hovering for 10 hours. I mean, that's just a long time to hover, right? And it's all caught on camera, multiple angle. Like, yeah, let's see that video, right? Like, what are we? That story baffles me. And Jeremy posted on Twitter as well from a clip that I showed, right? Jeremy shared it, retweeted it, and said that he added some additional information that basically, like, when they told people about the video, suddenly the video was like, gone or classified, right? And it had to do with the Department of Energy. So I don't know, right? It's one of those things. Will we ever get to see this video? I don't know. It's just such a strange encounter, right? 10 hours? Wouldn't something have happened or been done in 10 hours? How would that not be the greatest breach in, U.S. military history, right? That this giant alien spacecraft shaped like a pyramid comes out of a bay, right? Near this energy facility, as he put it, right? And it just hovers for 10 hours and then goes back in the water. Again, all caught on camera, multiple angle. Like, I just don't know how this is nuts. I don't know. It makes me wonder, like, how big was this thing? Right? There's the producer, right? Taking a break, y'all. Jeez. I swear to God. He's always napping, long walks and naps and treats, bro. But he deserves it. Anyway, this story baffles me, right? It makes me think this pyramid is like tiny, right? Because we really don't get an indication of size. So I don't know. I just totally baffled by that story.
Okay, so as a journalist, so George and I have been exposed to certain things, and here's the deal tonight. I talked with our lawyer in the hotel right before we came here. I was told by an ODNI agent that Dylan testified to ICIG, the police of the intelligence agencies, that there is a UFO program, and it's called Rubik's Cube. That's what he said. That's what I heard from the ODNI, which they shouldn't be calling me and telling me what was described in the skiff, should they? Right. So I'm a journalist, so I listen, and I'm testifying to you, believe me or not. I'm a bearded tattoo journalist with a great mentor. You don't need to believe me. Project Rubik's Cube. Dylan, I'm not going to look at you. Have you ever testified to ICIG about a UAP program or containing UAP called Project Rubik's Cube?
Let me collect my thoughts. I am not in a skiff. I am not going to jail. I can neither confirm or deny, but if you want me to answer that question, ask for amnesty for the whistleblowers, as Congress and the executive branch should give it to us, and I'll answer that question gladly.
All right, so this story definitely people were talking about, but, I don't know, right? So essentially, Jeremy Corbell is saying he spoke to someone at the ICIG, right? I think that's what he's saying, or the DNI or somebody, right? Somebody's giving him information about stuff that Dylan Borland said in allegedly a classified setting, right? Like a skiff, I guess. And that Dylan had brought up something called Project Rubik's Cube, right? And then Jeremy's basically asking Dylan, and Dylan's kind of, you can tell he's a little stressed, but I don't know if that's, did Dylan really not know Jeremy was going to bring that up? That would be weird for Jeremy to just throw that on Dylan in the middle of this like that. I don't know, but some ways I would respect that, because it's like, yeah, let's put these whistleblowers to the test here, right? Or Dylan knew it was coming and just acted that way. That would be weirder. So I don't know, right? I can't really tell if it's staged or not. But regardless, is this a real UFO program, right? And then Dylan doesn't confirm it or deny it, right? And then, of course, when people say I can neither confirm nor deny, people always go, well, he confirmed it. Always. They always say that, right? It doesn't. So people are running with, Dylan confirmed this. He didn't confirm anything. And if that's the loophole, you can just sort of wink, wink with classified information and it gets through and nothing happens to you. That would be stupid. And I don't think that's how it works. And if it does, we have a real problem. And if that's how it works, then why aren't we winking with all kinds of other information that people say, well, I can't release it, it's classified, I can't talk about. Why don't you just wink it away? Let's just wink disclosure, right? Give me the wink, right? It just it seems very theatrical more than informational, right? So I don't know, right? What's going on there, but in no way, shape, or form do I see Dylan confirming that at all. And of course, if you don't know what a Rubik's Cube is, right, it's this thing.
Rubik's Cube. Over 3 billion combinations, but just one solution from Ideal.
Right. I mean, in our childhood, we used to play with these things like crazy, and they do all these competitions. People solve them in seconds. I'm not joking. People solve these things in seconds. So they're calling it this. I don't know. Is it just a name? I'm not sure, right? But what is interesting, just on my research, I'm not saying it means anything, but I did look up Rubik's Cube and UFO program, and then all of a sudden I got this video.
Today I'm going to be talking about the Diansheng UFO cube.
All right, so apparently there's a Rubik's Cube called a UFO, right? And it's, and then there's this one.
So I was surfing YouTube yesterday, as I usually do, and I was thinking to myself, wowee, YouTube really needs a good UFO tutorial. So at the time, I didn't know how to solve this. Now I do.
Right. Then, yeah, there's another, Rubik's Cube that's shaped like a UFO. You have to solve it. So I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, I don't know. And then, of course, you had Luis Elizondo get asked about it and listen to his answer. Any program or project by specific name, unless I'm given specific authorization to discuss, I cannot. So he's basically being ambiguous so that people think, Luis Elizondo just confirmed it. Again, just more gaslighting in the community, right? I just, you know what I mean? This seems odd, right? Because if that was real, Luis Elizondo, it seems like if he still has a clearance, he would have to turn those people in. He'd have to turn Jeremy Corbell, Dylan Borland in, right? He'd have to turn them in. Or he just never heard of that, right? I don't know. It's just a weird answer, but again, it's not necessarily Lou's fault in this sense. It's more just people, if you confirm nor deny anything, people just assume you confirmed it, right? I give up. And then on top of that, I saw people pointing out that there was a recent interview with Skip Atwater on the Sean Ryan show where he brought up this concept of a Rubik's Cube in relation to a conversation that Skip Atwater saying he had with an alien who described basically space travel as a Rubik's Cube. Take a look.
How do you get from here to Alpha Centauri? We can't do that. The only thing that we think about is I have to go really fast for a really long time. How is it that you can go to Alpha Centauri without any problem? And essentially he said, you wouldn't understand. So I said, I agree. That's a problem. However, I know that you have access to my mental thoughts. I mean, you're not talking to me with your mouth. You have access to my mental thoughts, and I understand that. Can you use what information I have in my head and try to explain it to me? And he said, well, do you know what a Rubik's Cube is? And I said, oh, yeah, my son can do them in 2 minutes. He says, okay, so imagine a Rubik's Cube, but not necessarily just the 6 sides. Just imagine the concept of a Rubik's Cube. And I said, okay. Now imagine on each one of the tiles on the Rubik's Cube has a chart of the elements, an elemental chart. And you say, oh, yeah, I know what that is. You know, I've had science in school and everything. He says, now, on each of the other 5 surfaces, there's also elemental charts. And I said, so, okay, but what's the deal? And he said, well, you're thinking about going that way very fast for a very long time. What he didn't say to me, which I'm thinking right now, there's no space and time. I'm only thinking that right now. That wasn't part of the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, so what you do to get to Alpha Centauri is you just twist the cube. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I told you you wouldn't understand. And he said, when the periodic table occurs in a different place, you're at that place. And that's just a very crude explanation. But you have to stop thinking about go that way for a long time very fast. It doesn't work.
Now, I have to be honest, Skip Atwater seems like a nice guy, but that story seems like total bullshit. And that whole interview seems like total bullshit. It really feels like he's just making that stuff up, which is really sad, to be honest with you, to see like grown human beings just downright making stuff up, you know, and you think, hey, you're a nice guy. Why are you doing that? I don't know. You know, people are going to look at it differently. Now, the theory of what he's saying sounds cool, right? Rubik's Cube. Okay, this sounds interesting. Are they connected? Does this have to do with what Dylan and Jeremy are talking about? Of course, people are going to make connections. Any mention of Rubik's Cube gets brought into the mix, right? I mean, you even had Jeremy Corbell bring up Rubik's Cube in his latest interview on Chris Ramsey's show in a completely innocent context, or at least it seems.
Okay.
You're like, let's go back to UFOs. Sorry.
Well, I want to go back to UFOs. Certainly want to go back to UFOs.
Am I derailing you?
No.
Okay.
No, I like this.
I like the train.
Yeah, I like dynamic conversations, and some people.
But we're not being sporadic, right?
I don't know. Who cares?
Right. Okay, but I hope that we can have a logical, straightforward conversation.
We can have any type of conversation we want. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Whatever conversation.
Your audience.
To be quite frank, in the words of Rick Rubin, the audience comes last. Right?
Did he say that?
Yeah.
What a genius.
Because you got to think about the task at hand. You got to think about what you're doing, what you're passionate about, all that stuff.
Wow.
After you do that,
right?
If you do that, the audience will love it, hopefully.
Right.
But even if they don't, it has to mean something to you for you to do
Rick
it. So
Rubin's Rubik's Cube, bro.
Yeah, he's got some good thoughts. So okay. And love the audience, by the way.
Don't be a dick.
I'm not trying to be a dick to the audience.
Dude, I think they paid for this set, bro. Unless it was some billionaire you're not telling us, Ramsey.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I know. You mean you self-made?
You mean Daddy Teal? No,
Daddy Teal. No.
Right. And to me, that just seems very innocent, right? That he's saying it there, but who knows, right? This is a couple months before Jeremy comes out with this at this McMillanville Festival. That's where he said this stuff with Dylan Borland. You could see George Knapp on the stage too, right? So, at the end of the day, it's the same situation we find ourselves in with 99.9% of this stuff, which is no context. We'll have to wait for more information. And that's us, always in the UFO community, waiting for more information. We get a drop, we get one piece of the puzzle, and then we're told to wait. And then they move on. And then you get another piece of a puzzle from a different puzzle and told to keep waiting, right? And that's it. We're teased. We're winked at. That's it. So whatever. I don't know. you know.
Does anybody ever have an experience where they go and they get abducted and then they ask what happens to some of these people? How many people do you do this to?
It must have happened, but I don't know if they've ever gotten a response from it.
Has anybody ever asked how many people do you abduct? How many people have you taken like this?
I'm sure they've asked, but I'm not sure that they would have gotten an answer.
Huh.
And then you know that there's a theory out there that there's more than one type or one group taking people.
Yeah. Well, this is the Fox News thing. See if you could find that Fox News report, because it's kind of wacky. Because watching it on Fox News, you're like, is Fox News all of a sudden coast to coast with Art Bell? Like, what the hell has happened? Because they were talking about the reptilians and the Nordics, the Greys. Fox News. TV. Like regular TV. Like, what is going on here? Is that nonsense? Are they being fed nonsense? Or is this disclosure? And are they slow trickling this out to us to get regular folks like boomers, get them accustomed to this idea of there are entities out there?
What if they're just acclimating you to the reality of our world? And what if the truth is that there's people around you that are aliens and you don't even know it?
I think Elon's a fucking alien. It's the only thing that makes sense. I think I met a few aliens, definitely. Joey Diaz might be an alien. There's a few people that I've met that I'm like, you're not real. There's no way you're real. But Elon's the top of my list. Like, he doesn't even make sense. Like, I've met a lot of people that are smarter than me. I'm not the smartest guy. But there's only a few people that I met. I'm like, okay, we're not even the same thing. Okay, let's hear this. And this is with Dan from Age of Disclosure. And that's one of the
people I interviewed in my film, senior intelligence officials, went on the record saying that there have been dozens of crashed craft of non-human origin over the years, and elements of our government have recovered those crashes, and they've gotten out of that technology of non-human origin, and in some cases, non-human bodies that were on these craft. A number of the people in my film go on the record saying that the bodies were not all the same type, meaning there were multiple species.
Were the bodies alive or were they dead?
The people in my film talked about events where they were dead bodies, they were deceased bodies.
Okay, and there's a lot of speculation about the amount of UFO information we've been given on this first tranche. We expected more. We know there is more. Why do you
I've never
think
used that word
people
before.
inside the
Tranche.
government
Have you ever used that word?
fighting so hard to release more?
Yeah, so the president gave his directive in middle of February, essentially instructing all federal agencies to declassify evidence of non-human intelligent life and UAP. What happened after that is the White House had to go get that evidence out of the hands of all these federal agencies, and they all for the most part pushed back. The people who have gatekept this information for 80 years, they don't want to share it. You know, they've gotten a lot of power and control over the years, and it's just frankly not human nature for people to want to give up power and control. So there's a tug of war happening behind the scenes. There are a number of other reasons guiding their desire to keep this secret, including a general belief that the public can't handle the truth. I would argue the public can handle the truth. I think my film shows that. People aren't watching it and jumping out of windows. They're curious and they want to learn more. There's also a general feeling that, a concern that they can't tell the American public what they know and don't know without also telling our adversaries and giving them some sort of advantage. But I think that's...
Is that good?
Yeah, it's good.
Now, Joe bringing up, they're talking about the 4 alien species on Fox News. Is this part of disclosure that's happening? No. I think, you're just going to see this stuff on news channels because it brings clicks. People click on it, but it won't last long. Once there's really no evidence, they're going to be like, okay, it's been a few years now. Now what? Right? So I say, ride the train while it's still going. I don't know. That's a bad analogy, but, essentially this all stems from, right? They're showing Dan Farah there. This all stems from a recent interview on Diary of a CEO, which I made a separate video about. entirely. It had Hal Puthoff and Dan Farrar there from the Age of Disclosure. But there was one clip. I don't think I actually showed it in my video, but this one clip did go viral from it, which was just them talking about that the government was aware of multiple types of alien species here on Earth, specifically 4 different types of alien species.
UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside, shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 types, 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talk to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
4 different species of aliens. Another scientist called them Greys, Nordics, Insectoids, and Reptilians. All of them have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. Experts speculate the reptilians are scaly with long tails, like a lizard. Insectoids look like a praying mantis. The Greys look like your classic movie alien, and the Nordics look like a regular Swedish guy, but 7 feet tall. We haven't seen the evidence, but Pete Hegseth says more evidence is coming.
And of course, there's no evidence, there's no proof, there's no nothing, right? Again, one little piece of the puzzle. Then they move on, right? Here we are talking about the 4 alien species. Eric Davis talked about this like a year ago, right? At a little hearing, unofficial hearing that happened in DC. That's the same one where Lou Elizondo showed those irrigation circles, right? And Eric Davis is sitting there telling Luna and everybody there at the table, like, there's 4 alien species. We got reptoids and, greys and insectoids and Nordics. And, you know what I mean? It's like, again, small little group of people behind the scenes who just circular report this stuff, right? But it all goes back. It's like, imagine a tree that grows from one seed. You got all the branches and leaves and roots and everything, but it came from one seed. That's how the UFO community works, man. You can always trace things back to just a few different seeds, right? Essentially, right? So again, where's the evidence or proof of this stuff? And look, they go even crazier with the alien stuff, okay? Remember just alien hybridization program? There was a story about this not too long ago. I made a video about it. You remember this? Let's take a look at that.
So I want to get to the missing scientists, but before we do, I need to show you this clip of Congressman Tim Burchett on Newsmax. I'm not going to say another word. Team, SOT 2, please.
Former colleague of yours, Matt Gaetz, making some pretty shocking statements yesterday about aliens. Take a look.
I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. Aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants.
All right. I mean, I don't have the tinfoil hat on just yet, Congressman, but I'm wondering, kind of how you react to that, because you are connected, you're on the UFO subcommittee. I mean, I'm just wondering what you make of that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much on what Matt said. But I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that
tongue-in-cheek? I'm being 100% serious. Okay. I've been 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this. If they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up. You'd be up at night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. We just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it. Well, I was briefed. I'll just tell you this. I was briefed last week on an issue, 2 weeks ago, and it would have set the earth on. This country would have come unglued, I think, if they would have heard all that I heard. They would demand answers.
Okay, so where do we start? Should we start with an alien hybrid breeding program where they're capturing caravans of immigrants and forcing them into this? Or should we start with the fact that a congressman who is well respected thinks that if this is fully disclosed, it's going to set the country on fire? I'm going to hand this one over to you here. I'm speechless.
And we'll get to Lou's response here in just a second. But, this story has been out, right? You just heard Matt Gaetz talk about it. And, we think within the UFO community, a few of us think we traced who this exactly came from. And, it's completely uncredible guy, right? Who hasn't even given out like his real name, right? He's been on this show called Redacted. He wears these like Oakleys, and he just talks about, also talks about like, the 2020 and back, like he was a secret super space soldier, right? Again, we don't know if that's the guy, but it's just, again, what are they going in and telling him this stuff for, right? Telling Matt Gaetz this stuff for, you know what I mean? Like what's happening? Who's taking the humans to breed with the aliens? Is it the aliens taking them from the ends of caravans, these human caravans that are migrating across the country, or refugees, or that? Would aliens even know that this is like, you know what I mean? What? And if humans are doing it, what are we talking about? Right? This is so weird. It's so weird. I'm telling you. And again, no proof, no evidence, no nothing. Right? Again, another little piece of the puzzle. And we're just left to wonder what's going on. Right? Those of us who are the most reasonable hear this and just go, this is bonkers. Right? Doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just, what's the probability based on the evidence shown? Since there's been near zero evidence shown, how can there be any high probability of this? Right? Granted, if there was some convincing evidence or proof about it, then that would be different. But there isn't. There's just these stories. They go in and talk to the Congress and senators behind the scenes, and you know what I mean? See what's going on. Right? I mean, Matt Gaetz recently, expanded upon that story in a recent X Space. Most people have not seen this or heard this, right? But he went in and expanded on the story, and this is what Matt Gaetz had to say.
What have you seen? I shared on the Benny Johnson show that the strangest briefing I ever got in Congress was from a guy in Army uniform. He was with the 7th Special Forces Group, came in with multiple defense contractors, and told me that there were, about 8 or 9 sites in the country where captured aliens were being forcibly bred with humans to create a hybrid race that could then communicate intergalactically. No one on my staff believed this. They all thought it was nonsense. And frankly, my general counsel thought it was a counterintelligence operation. Sometimes when there's like very troubling truth out there in the world, what counterintel will do is that they will present absolutely false information. And they will do it in the hopes that someone will spread that false information so that it can be discredited and then bring discredit on the movement more broadly. And so the lawyer in my office believed that was what was happening, that the government was actively trying to get members of Congress to take up and spread things that were not true. So at the time, when I was wearing a congressional pin, I said nothing about it. But when I was out of office and someone asked me what was like the weirdest thing anyone ever came in my office and said, there's definitely nothing weirder than the hybrid breeding program.
So Matt Gaetz, team around him thought it was counterintelligence, right? Again, if someone's going to come in and tell you that stuff, you say, sure. Okay. Where's the evidence? Yeah, where's the evidence of the story you're telling me? That uniform, your badges don't mean anything, right? That doesn't mean, well, they're telling the truth. They bring nothing. They don't read them in. It's not classified. Wouldn't this be classified? Right? Again, just so weird, right? And Matt Gaetz is just saying like, yeah, that's the craziest thing I heard, right? Essentially, he's not saying it's true. Right? I don't even think he thinks it's true, to be honest with you, right? And then we have Luis Elizondo's response, of course, to this.
Well, first of all, I've had the privilege of speaking to Representative Tim Burchett and his colleagues. And what he's saying regarding access to very sensitive information, he's absolutely correct. Some of the people that briefed those individuals, I personally know. They were colleagues of mine back in the day. He's absolutely correct that some of the population, I think, would probably be potentially concerned about how much we know about this topic, and for several reasons. We can go into that. Now, as far as this notion of alien crossbreeding and hybridization, let me just preface this. When I was in the Pentagon at ATIP, I was a nuts and bolts kind of guy, so really airframe, air integrity, the material science and propulsion behind the vehicles themselves, not so much the occupants. But what Gates is referring to is something called, in the vernacular, it's known throughout kind of the UFO community as MyLabs. And what it suggests is that there's been a long-standing agreement or understanding between us and our friends from out of town that have allowed us to work with whatever these are, in a cooperative agreement, and in exchange for that, supposedly they would have access to certain human specimens biologically in order to test. I have to say, first and foremost, I heard about that while I was at the Pentagon. I was not privy to the specifics of that. From my understanding, that relationship began, if it is true, sometime in the 1950s. And has continued. I have met several individuals, former intelligence officers for the Air Force and other services, who swear by it, who actually say they've had encounters with UAP and have seen military personnel in and around the vehicles, and as if, very nonchalant, as if it was supposed to be. I have to be careful with going into any type of speculation about hybridization or any type of scientific study or research, because, again, that was not my forte. But what I will say is I've had plenty of individuals tell me verbatim that the military is far more, the military-industrial complex is far more involved in this topic than anyone really knows. There are cases which seem rather interesting, where you have, in some cases, UAP potentially being escorted by American fighter jets and allied fighter jets. So that would give you some sense of cooperation, maybe between us and whatever they are. I can't tell you for certain, because simply I wasn't privy to that, if that indeed existed. But
Luis Elizondo has a great talent, right? Well, let me give him his flowers here. He's an amazing talent to say a lot while at the same time saying nothing. Was that not just the most dodgy, all over the place answer to the question that Jillian was asking, right? I mean, again, Elizondo, wow, what a talent. What a talent. Again, says nothing, confirms nothing, denies nothing, just speculates, I don't want to speculate too much, and then spends the entire time speculating. All things he heard, right? Wasn't read in, not my forte. The people out of town. This was Gran Torino. Again, I just, first of all, I have a tough time even listening to Luis Elizondo, if I'm being honest. But again, great, I heard that. Now what? Right? So, I don't know. What's interesting is Elizondo's been asked about this before in a congressional setting under oath. And this was his answer.
Okay, so there are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids. Are any of you familiar with that? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
I am not, ma'am.
I'm not.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Well, Elizondo, she didn't say, is it true or not? She just said, are you familiar with it? It's not in Luis Elizondo's answer, right? It's in the question, in the way it was worded. All Lauren Boebert said was, "Are you familiar with this?" And Luis Elizondo says, "No." That's a flat out lie under oath. He's clearly familiar with it. He said in this Jillian interview, right? This time at the Pentagon, this hearing wasn't that long ago, right? So Elizondo clearly was familiar with it, but he didn't want to talk about it there. Again, they're just playing games with us. Just remember, any of these people that go on podcasts or do any, conferences, they speak, any of this stuff, they can say whatever they want, right? It's just how it goes, right? So again, more gaslighting, more manipulation, more wink, wink, right? Disclosure here. And again, another small piece of the puzzle.
If I could see into the future, Lou, I'm getting lottery numbers. Do you know what I mean? That's it. I'm getting lottery numbers and I'm buying an island and I am checking out of this crazy shit. So, like, why is nobody, I'm not hearing about people that guessed every lottery number every week. Like, that's what I would do. I would say, okay, I'm going to look into the super lottery tomorrow.
I would love for you to talk to one of my former colleagues, Dr. Hal Puthoff, one of the godfathers, if you will, of the remote viewing program, Stargate and Grill Flame and whatnot. They did exactly that. Their budget was getting cut, so they decided for a month to play the stock market. And you know what? They made $2 million. But there is this weird rule with karma that if you try to use it for self-gain, and I don't know why this happens, it's like the laws of the universe are against you. But if you use it for self-gain, you wind up always something backfiring, and it winds up being worse for you. And that is exactly what happened. But that's not my story to tell. If you ever want to have a really interesting guest, talk to Dr. Hal Puthoff. He has a long history with the intelligence community. He's exceptionally intelligent. And he can tell you more or less how this works and why certain things you can do and you can't do. I've always made it a rule, don't ever use anything for personal gain or for selfish gain. The universe has this weird karma thing where eventually you're gonna have to pay back somehow. And I believe that remote viewing is no different. There is a requirement to self-regulate, and there's kind of an unwritten rule that you never use it for bad purposes or selfish purposes. Now, is it? I'm sure it is. But again, this is something you'd probably want to talk to Dr. Puthoff. He can go into a lot more detail because he was there from the beginning to the program all the way to the end. I just kind of skimmed over the water top at the very, very end. So he would know a lot more. But they did that, and they played a lot, and they played the stock market, and they won, I think, made $2 million in the first month, and then the whole program wound up getting shut down.
Oh my God! Well, what's fascinating about that is there are so many evil people in the world, and you wonder why they don't get justice. You're telling me these guys gamed the stock market and got justice instantaneously? Like, that's...
You have to ask him. It is, and I've seen it over and over again. I don't know what causes the universe to give people their just desserts or not. I don't know. I tend to try to always follow the golden rule of don't judge others, and hopefully they won't judge you. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of bad people in the world that do a lot of bad things, and they get away with it. And I don't know why that is. Or maybe they don't get away with it. Maybe at the end, you have this reckoning, this balancing of the account. At least certainly that's what I would hope. But it's a great question, and I would talk to Dr. Hal Puthoff, talk to some of the other folks that were Joe McMoneagle, who actually teaches remote viewing, I believe, still. There's a lot of folks in the Washington, D.C. area that worked for the CIA, worked for INSCOM, and they can tell you a lot more specifics if that's something you're interested in. Let me know, and I can get you connected.
All right, well, a few things here, right? One, don't worry, we're going to listen from Hal on this because I've got an old clip from Jesse Michaels where he interviewed Hal Puthoff with Eric Weinstein, and Hal's answer is interesting, right? And contradicts exactly what Lou Elizondo just said. But before we get to that clip, let me just say that Luis Elizondo, behind the scenes, right? People have reported this. putting it in their blogs. They put it in YouTube videos. People have interacted directly with Luis Elizondo. That Luis Elizondo grabs people's arms and reads their future, tells them what their future is, claims to be a future teller, right? Elizondo can see into the future. Isn't that an interesting response that he gives there? Right? Just saying. That's what remote viewing would be doing if you do the lottery, right? You're looking into the future. Well, there's this karmic thing that won't let you, gain from it, But you do it all the time, Lou, behind the scenes, right? Again, as another, my opinion, form of manipulation. Again, that's my opinion. Now, what's so interesting about his answer, and I'm glad Lou brought up Hal Puthoff, because again, let's get to that clip of Jesse Michaels and Eric Weinstein talking to Hal Puthoff, and listen to what he said about remote viewers and if they should, maybe play the stock market or make money off of this, right?
If this effect exists, why is it classified and why is the government, where is it in the stock market?
Well, there are remote viewers who use it on the stock market.
So like the good examples that you guys tried to start a hedge fund, just trading silver futures, and you made something like 260K, and I think scaling it beyond that seemed to be a big challenge.
It was only a challenge because I didn't have the time to do it. I mean, our particular thing.
I want to be polite, but I also want to be aggressive.
Sure.
My experience with money tells me that you can win over any skeptic very quickly if you can just shove millions of dollars into their pocket by arbitraging their skepticism.
Okay, well, let me tell you how to do it, and you just go do it. It's really easy, actually.
I know some people with capital.
Okay. Just have somebody pick a couple of objects, have them label them, mark it up, mark it down, and they're going to show you the object the following day, depending on what the market does. And then you do your best to generate a description. Then based on that description, they can go bet. And the next day, on the average, you get your money. We ran 70-30 instead of 50-50. And so it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 1 step backward.
That's how we astounding claim.
That's how we got this $260,000, which is.
Why did you stop?
Well, the reason I stopped was I was already working, frankly, 24 hours a day on training the Army intelligence officers. And so I was exhausted after 30 days of doing this.
Sorry.
But if you want to do it, feel free to do it. I've told you how to do it, so you can just go do it.
Okay. Now, I'm having a very surreal experience. For a large portion of the conversation, you seem absolutely cogent, coherent, well-informed, well-spoken. And then there's this part that just doesn't make any effing sense. And this is the part that doesn't make any effing sense. Rolling up in a Bugatti to your Gulfstream to fly to your island is a very powerful argument that you know what you're talking about. The Bitcoin community has been insulted by the economists. They've been laughed at by financiers. And they have a phrase which I really detest, but I think you need to hear it. And it's called number go up. And number go up means that when you're talking to an esteemed professor of economics or finance, and they're telling you that you're an idiot, and you say, well, why don't you visit me at the Yellowstone Club? I'll send the jet around for you. Number go up is an incredibly powerful argument because of human greed and avarice.
Okay, I think we made this point.
Did you see how, angry Hal Puthoff got there? Well, I told you how to do it, so go do it. Now go do it, right? Let's break down Hal Puthoff's answer, which I think is completely bullshit, right? You telling me you didn't have the time to go make $1 bazillion because you were working on the remote viewing program? I was working 24 hours a day. First of all, that's impossible. So now we know you're exaggerating. So now we can establish that about Hal Puthoff, who is a scientist who should be all about the numbers. Clearly, he exaggerates. So this is what his claim. He said he's working 24 hours a day to basically prove that remote viewing is real. But he doesn't have the time to prove remote viewing is real. Do you see? And you said, Patrick, well, why do you say that? Well, if he did the stock market and made $1 bazillion with remote viewing, that would prove it's real. right? So there you go. And you make $1 bazillion, right? But he doesn't have the time. But now he told Brett or Eric Weinstein how to go do it. Well, he didn't say shit about how to go do it. That's like, how do I get a magic beanstalk? Well, go get some magic beans and plant it and pour some water on it. There you go. I told you. That's how you do it. Go do it. You know? How do I get that pot of gold from the leprechaun at the end of a rainbow? You know, well, just go find a rainbow and go slide it down until you find the leprechaun and then steal his pot of gold. I mean, that's just how you do it. What? And so, I mean, I feel stupid watching some of this stuff, right? I'm starting to get like, they think we're stupid, right? They just can say this stuff and we just eat it up. We've got to start. I mean, personally, that's why I push back. If there's something real here, great. I want it to be. I'm done letting them just tell me some bullshit. It's time to start putting your money where your mouth is, right? So Luis Elizondo saying, well, there's a karmic thing out there. But that's not what Hal Puthoff's saying. Hal Puthoff's like, well, I just didn't have the time to go make $1 bazillion, right? And what's funny is that's Eric Weinstein's bread and butter, the financial stuff. So you can't bullshit him on that, right? So he was right there like, well, wait a second. And then Jesse has to, you can tell there's a cut there. Just, okay, I think we've covered that enough. They clearly went back and forth on that and then just didn't include it, in my opinion, right? Because it's BS. And Eric knows it as well, right? Same way he knew when he sat down with Eric Davis that it was bullshit, right? On their other recent one. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not saying there's nothing to this, but there's a lot of people giving a lot of bullshit, right? And the more I listen to Hal Puthoff, the more I think that guy is absolutely gaslighting everyone. I don't want to say he's full of shit. He's clearly a smart guy, way smarter than me. Nothing adds up about the things he says. And he's too smart to say them. That's stupid. So what does that tell you? In my experience, that says something's up. Something's off and something's up.
I would have never imagined, if I didn't know Neil deGrasse Tyson, well, he's not talking extraterrestrials. He's the debunker. He's, don't bring that my way. I'm an astrophysicist and I'm married to one. And I think all my kids do that also. So I'm like 2-3 generations deep of science-y. Don't bring that noise my way. You say quite the opposite, my friend. Why would you write about extraterrestrial life?
Yeah. So what began to happen, if you go back long enough, not that long, a few decades ago, many of the accounts of UFOs and alien abductions and things were people who didn't otherwise have title or integrity that their station in life would grant them. There was the farmer in his back 40. There was drunken revelers at 2 a.m. staggering out of the bar. Mm-hmm. And it would be their accounts of UFOs that would get reported on. And beginning a few years ago, and all of you in the media just ate it up, when various whistleblowers and insiders.
News Nation has covered this more than anybody and had more of the whistleblowers than anyone else.
There you go.
And they ain't farmers.
There you go. They're not farmers. They're not drunken revelers. And there's a parade of them. Many of them former, ex-military, intelligence agency officers, and under oath in front of Congress. By the way, this is the last and only time I remember in the past decade where both houses of Congress were just together with one investigative purpose. Mm-hmm. I was quite impressed by that. Mm. Aliens brought us together is what that was. So when these people of high rank started reporting, I said, all right, I have to jump in here. I can't stay silent. I have to be a participant in what's going on.
Because of what happened to you when you got beamed up? and you went up there and meet a wrestler? Just because I came down as this?
Just because I wanted to be beamed up didn't mean I got beamed up. Okay?
It would explain some things. Because from the wrestling captain in high school to being, Captain Science, it was a little bit of a leap.
Okay, you think they put a chip in me when I was up there?
It's a theory.
No, I actually had a theory. You have a hypothesis. Okay.
Oh, listen to this.
Let's keep that straight.
I'll take an axiom. So you decided to jump
a lemma? You want to be a lemma? So
now, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? So this clip is definitely going viral. People are actually pretty pissed at Neil deGrasse Tyson for basically the idea is, oh, he's been shitting on UFOs for so long and now he's all on board. I think that's a very simplistic way to put it, but let's just play in that sandbox for a second. Let's say that that's true, right? Because he has a new book coming out they were talking about, right? Let's say that that's true. Wasn't the whole point of the UFO community to get people into UFOs and remove the stigma? Don't we want disclosure? We want more people to be involved with this. We want more people to believe in it. So the moment people start believing it, you just shit on them? Who cares what they said before? Right? It makes no sense. Honestly, what the feeling I'm getting is that a lot of people in the UFO community are just waiting to say, I told you so. F you. You weren't here from the beginning. Well, neither were you. Neither was anybody. Everyone found a door into this community some way or another along the journey. You can just start on the journey, right? We all get on the train or off of it at different stops along the way. So to just start piling onto people who are like, okay, I'm in, even if they were a skeptic before, right? Like, who cares? I find that so odd. And it is concerning to just see that I told you so. Whoa, dude. It's like you just add to the stigma that you want removed, right? Doesn't make any sense. If the whole idea is disclosure to the human race, boy, there's going to be a lot of people in the UFO community aren't going to be able to handle other people being like, yeah, I'm in now, even though they weren't before. Isn't that the whole point? You're trying to, whatever. It's just, again, I'm saying if we were to play in that sandbox, I think actually Neil deGrasse Tyson has been saying a lot of this stuff for a while. You know, most people hate him and don't listen to him or watch his show. They just see little clips here and there. I watch his show. I watch Star Talk. I follow Neil deGrasse Tyson's show. I like his show, Star Talk. He does some great interviews with a lot of scientists. I'm not saying I'm a huge Neil deGrasse Tyson fan, but I don't hate the guy, right? I like his show, and I watch it a lot. And he'd been talking about UFOs and aliens like this for a while. So to me, it's nothing new. But regardless, right? I just found that interesting that people were jumping on him if they thought, well, why are you into it now? Isn't that the whole point? Isn't that what you wanted?
And I think the significant point is this. I am pessimistic in the long run about what we would call capital D disclosure. They're never going to release that stuff. Never. I mean, anything short of the government saying, we've got crash saucers and we've got alien bodies and here's some pictures of it, is not going to do it. It's not going to satisfy the public, certainly not the UFO public or the people who follow it closely, and that is not going to happen. But if the releases continue and you start getting more and newer stuff, things that can be actually investigated by the public, by science, I think that we will have a better picture, big picture, of just how much data the government has been hiding all these years.
So you're saying you don't see them wheeling out the sport model halftime of the Super Bowl and say, here's what Bob Lazar was talking about.
Or maybe
probably not going to happen.
Yeah, or maybe at the UFC fight on the White House lawn, they could have wheel out the alien bodies or something. I doubt that's ever going to happen. But I am thankful for the process. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad they at least started it, and I hope that they continue to release more and better information. But this stuff just didn't cut it, and there's some very good reasons why the public should be angry.
All right, betters, let me know what you think of George Knapp's comments there that he recently made about disclosure and whatnot, and all the different stories we covered in today's show. Leave your comments down below. I'll take a look. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Remember about us. Every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.